When the phone rang that morning, I almost ignored it. It was early, too early for anyone to call unless something was wrong. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels soft and safe. I remember standing by the window, watching the pale light of dawn spread across my kitchen floor. I had no idea that my life was about to turn in a direction I never expected. When I finally answered, I heard a small voice, a trembling one. "Sir, my mom didn't wake up." For a moment, I could not understand. It felt like the world paused. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, thinking maybe I misheard. "What did you say, sweetheart?" I asked. The little girl repeated herself, her voice barely above a whisper. "My mom, she won't wake up. She's cold." I remember my breath catching, my heart dropping. I was the CEO of a large company, used to making hard decisions, used to emergencies. But nothing prepared me for the voice of a child asking for help like that. I tried to keep my tone calm. "Where are you right now?" I asked. "In our room," she said. "Mom told me to wake her if I got hungry, but she won't move." There was a short pause. I could hear her breathing, fast and shaky. Papers rustled on my desk as I grabbed my keys with one hand and held the phone tightly with the other. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "I'm coming. Keep talking to me, okay? You're not alone." As I rushed out of the house, the morning air hit me like a wave, cold, sharp, the kind that wakes every nerve in your body. I got into my car and drove faster than I should have, but all I could think of was that tiny voice. This wasn't just any child. This was Lena, the daughter of one of my employees, a woman named Mara, who worked in our cleaning department. Quiet, humble, always polite. She never asked for anything, never complained. And now, her daughter was calling me instead of an ambulance. That detail alone told me everything. They had no one, no family nearby, no neighbors they trusted, just me. As I drove, I kept her on the phone. "What's your mom doing right now?" I asked softly. "She's still in bed," she whispered. I shook her arm. She didn't move. "I'm scared." My fingers tightened around the wheel. I whispered back, "I'm scared too, sweetheart, but I'm coming. Just stay where you are." There was a long silence. Then she said something so small, so fragile, that it almost broke me. "Please hurry." In that moment, I felt my own heartbeat in my throat. I didn't know what I would find when I reached her home, but I knew one thing for certain. I had to get there before that little girl's world shattered completely. By the time I reached their apartment building, my hands were shaking. I didn't want Lena to hear the fear in my voice, so I stayed quiet for a moment in the car, breathing deeply before calling her again. "I'm downstairs, sweetheart. Can you come to the door?" There was a tiny gasp of relief. Yes, I can." I stepped out of the car and hurried toward the entrance. The morning light was stronger now, but inside the building, everything felt dim and heavy. When Lena opened the front door, she looked so small, a little girl with tangled hair, wearing pink pajamas, and holding her stuffed bear so tightly it seemed like she was afraid it might disappear too. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. She was past that point. Without thinking, I knelt down in front of her. "You did the right thing calling me," I whispered. She nodded slowly. "Please come. Mom won't wake up." I followed her up the narrow staircase. Every step felt like it echoed. Every turn felt heavier. At the top, she pointed to a small door on the left. "She's in there," Lena said, her voice so quiet I barely heard it. I hesitated at the doorway. Something inside me felt cold, not fear exactly, but a deep, sinking sadness, a feeling that told me I might be too late. The room was still, curtains half drawn, a small fan humming softly, and on the worn-out mattress, under a thin blanket, lay her mother, Mara. One look at her, and my heart dropped. She was still, completely still. Her skin was pale, her lips slightly parted, as if she had been trying to breathe but couldn't. A glass of water sat on the floor beside the bed. A folded towel lay near her, signs she had been unwell, signs she tried to manage it alone. Is she sleeping? Lena asked from behind me. My throat tightened. I couldn't speak. I didn't want to break her world with one sentence. Sir? She whispered again. I turned toward her, swallowing the heaviness in my chest. Sweetheart, I need you to wait in the living room for a moment. Just a moment. Can you do that for me? She nodded and slowly stepped back. As soon as she left, I knelt beside the bed. I touched her wrist. No warmth, no pulse. The truth settled over me like a bitter wave. She was gone. Gone while her daughter slept beside her. My eyes stung, and I closed them for a moment. Why didn't you call someone, Mara? Why didn't you ask for help? I whispered. Then I stood and walked to the living room and found Lena sitting on the couch, hugging her knees, looking up at me with hope that was about to break. She asked one question, the one that hit me the hardest. Can you help my mom now? I looked at her, feeling the weight of the moment crush every part of me. Sweetheart, I whispered, kneeling again. Show me now, she pointed toward the room, and I knew I could not hide the truth much longer. If you're following this story, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel to support more emotional, real-life stories. I sat down beside Lena on the small couch, the springs dipping under my weight. She looked at me with those wide, hopeful eyes, the kind children have when they believe adults can fix everything. I wished with all my heart that I could. Is Mom okay? She asked softly. My mouth felt dry. I opened it once, closed it again, then tried a second time. Sweetheart, your mom is very sick. She hugged her stuffed bear tighter. But she'll wake up, right? She always wakes up. Those words cut straight through me. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. I don't think she can wake up anymore. Her forehead wrinkled. What do you mean? I moved a little closer, keeping my voice soft. Your mom, she passed away. She's not hurting anymore. She's not in pain. But she can't come back. For a long moment, there was only silence, the kind that fills a room like thick fog. Then Lena shook her head. No, she was just tired. She just needed to rest. Those words cut straight through me. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. I don't think she can wake up anymore. Her forehead wrinkled. What do you mean? I moved a little closer, keeping my voice soft. Your mom, she passed away. She's not hurting anymore. She's not in pain. But she can't come back. For a long moment, there was only silence, the kind that fills a room like thick fog. Then Lena shook her head. No, she was just tired. She just needed to rest. Her voice trembled, and she stood up suddenly, rushing toward the bedroom. I followed her, but she was faster. She reached the bed and tugged at her mother's arm. Mom, wake up, please! Please wake up! Her voice cracked, thin and desperate. Mom, I'm hungry. You said to wake you, please. I stood in the doorway, feeling completely powerless. My chest tightened as I watched her try again, pressing her small hands against her mother's still body. Sweetheart, I whispered, stepping closer. She can't hear you. No, Lena cried. She always hears me. She always gets up. I knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her back. I know she always did. She took such good care of you. She loved you more than anything. She looked at me then, a look no child should ever have, a look of confusion, fear, and a heartbreaking realization that the world wasn't as safe as she thought. "Is she gone to heaven?" she whispered. "Yes," I said softly. "She is." Her tears came slowly at first, then all at once, she leaned into me, and I wrapped my arms around her, holding her while she cried into my shirt. I didn't rush her. I didn't say empty words. I just held her the way I imagined Mara would have wanted someone to hold her daughter. For a long while, her breathing slowed. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her pajamas. "What will happen to me now?" she asked, voice trembling. The question struck me harder than anything else, because I didn't have an answer yet. But in that moment, something inside me shifted, an instinct stronger than logic, stronger than responsibility. "You're not alone," I whispered. "I promise you, I'm here. I won't leave you." Lena leaned her head against my arm, exhausted, broken, and trusting me with the last thing she had left, herself. And I realized then, my life had changed too. After that morning, everything changed. Lena and I sat together on the couch for what felt like hours, the sunlight streaming through the thin curtains, dust motes dancing in the quiet room. She didn't speak much. Her small hand rested in mine, her tiny fingers trembling every now and then. I knew she was trying to understand what had just happened, trying to grasp the idea that her mom wasn't coming back. I made a promise to myself then. I would do everything I could to protect her, to make sure she had someone to lean on. I called a few close friends, my office assistant, and even a distant relative I knew Mara had trusted. I explained the situation, careful not to sound panicked, though inside I felt like my chest would burst. Every word was measured, but every heartbeat screamed at me that this little girl needed more than arrangements or formalities. She needed care, love, and someone who truly saw her pain. Over the next few hours, the apartment filled with the soft hum of quiet activity. Neighbors came by to offer help. I arranged for the authorities to handle Mara's belongings gently. But in the middle of all that, my attention never left Lena. She watched the world from the corner of the couch, her stuffed bear pressed against her cheek. Her trust in me was silent, but heavy, and I knew I could not betray it. At one point she asked, "Sir, will I be alone tonight?" Her voice was small, fragile, like a leaf in the wind. I smiled softly, though my chest ached. "No, sweetheart, not tonight, not ever. I'll stay until you feel safe." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time there was a little spark of relief. She believed me, and that belief, it became a quiet promise that I carried with me, stronger than any business deal or decision I'd ever made. Later that day, as I watched her quietly coloring at the kitchen table, I realized how much I had underestimated the weight of responsibility. I had thought being a CEO meant managing emergencies, making tough calls. But this was different. This wasn't about profit or efficiency. It was about a life, a soul, a child who had just lost the one person who anchored her world. And now somehow I was the one who had to anchor it for her. As evening fell, I made sure she had dinner, tucked her in gently, and stayed with her until her breathing evened out and her small body relaxed. I whispered words of comfort, not pretending that everything was okay, but letting her know that she wasn't alone. That night, I sat in the living room long after she had fallen asleep, staring at the walls that had suddenly become my responsibility. I understood then what real care meant. It wasn't grand gestures or public praise. It was presence. Quiet, steady, unwavering presence. And I knew that tomorrow would just be the beginning of that journey for both of us. If you're following Lena's story, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Every click helps us bring more real-life stories that touch hearts and inspire hope. The days that followed were quiet, but heavy. Lena and I fell into a new rhythm, a fragile one stitched together with small acts of care. Morning breakfasts became our little routine. I would make scrambled eggs, toast, and sometimes pancakes if I could manage it before the office called. She never complained, never demanded, just ate slowly while staring out the window, sometimes hugging her bear as if it held pieces of her mother's presence. We didn't talk much about Mara at first. Lena wasn't ready. And honestly, neither was I. I knew that the words, "she's gone," had already shaken her tiny world. But the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with small gestures. A shared smile over breakfast, helping her tie her shoelaces, reading her favorite storybooks aloud, even when my voice cracked. Each little moment became a lifeline. One afternoon, she asked, quietly, "Will I ever see Mom again?" Her words stopped me cold. I knelt down, looking into her tear-filled eyes. "I know it feels impossible, sweetheart," I said softly, "but we keep her alive in our hearts. Every time you laugh, every time you remember something she taught you, she's still with you." She nodded slowly, hugging me tightly. I could feel her little body trembling, and I realized how much strength it took for a child to carry grief this way. That hug wasn't just comfort for her, it was a reminder for me too, that even in sorrow, we could find small pieces of hope. As the days passed, I started organizing Mara's affairs with care, making sure nothing was left unfinished. But my priority was always Lena. I spoke with her teachers, arranged for a counselor, and made sure she had someone she could talk to when I wasn't around. Every time I left her at school, I felt a pang of worry. But she smiled and waved, and that small act made the heaviness slightly lighter. Evenings were the hardest. She would curl up on the couch, asking for one more story, one more cup of milk, one more hug. And I would stay with her, even when exhaustion clawed at my eyelids. Those nights taught me patience I never knew I had. They taught me that healing isn't quick. It's slow, quiet, like a sunrise spreading over a dark sky. And slowly, Lena began to open up. She would tell me small stories about her mom, how Mara sang to her every night, how she made pancakes in funny shapes, how she always kissed her forehead before school. Listening to her remember Mara wasn't painful. It was healing. It was proof that love lasts beyond life. One evening, as I watched her fall asleep, I whispered to myself, "We'll be okay." Not because the grief disappeared, but because we were learning together. Every day, step by step, we were finding a way to live with loss while holding on to love. And in that quiet realization, I understood the most important truth of all, that even in the darkest moments, presence, care, and gentle patience can become the light that guides a broken heart toward hope. Weeks passed, and life began to feel quieter, but in a gentle way. Lena and I were no longer strangers navigating an impossible situation. We had found a rhythm, a steady heartbeat in the midst of grief. Morning breakfasts, school routines, and small evening rituals became anchors, tiny moments of normalcy in a world that had suddenly shifted. One rainy afternoon, as we sat by the window watching drops race down the glass, Lena leaned her head against my shoulder. "I miss Mom," she whispered. "I miss her too," I said softly, holding her close. "But you know, it's okay to feel sad. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." She nodded, and for a long moment, we just sat there. The sound of rain tapping the roof, the warmth of her small body, the quiet of the apartment, it all felt like a fragile cocoon of safety. I realized then that the strongest thing we could do wasn't to erase the pain, but to carry it together. Every day, Lena taught me patience I never knew I had. And in return, I tried to give her strength, gentle guidance, and a presence she could trust. One evening, she looked up at me with those big, trusting eyes. "Sir, will things ever be normal again?" I paused. Normal. A word that suddenly felt complicated. I thought about her mother, the emptiness Mara had left, and the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. "I don't know if things will ever feel exactly the same," I said honestly, "but they can feel good again. They can feel safe, and we'll find that together." Her small hands slipped into mine. That simple act said more than words could. She was ready to trust me, ready to let me guide her through the days ahead, and I felt a warmth in my chest, a quiet, steady hope that we could both heal, one step at a time. That week, I started making small changes in her life. I helped her decorate her room with pictures of her mom, framed photographs, and drawings that reminded her of happier times. We cooked simple meals together, laughed at little mistakes, and sometimes just sat in silence, letting the comfort of presence fill the spaces between words. It wasn't always easy. There were tears, moments of anger, and nights when Lena would wake up calling for her mom. But each time I reminded myself, being there, staying calm, offering love, that's what mattered. That's what would help her rebuild trust in the world. I came to understand something important. Grief doesn't go away, but love, care, and consistency can create a bridge over it. Lena was learning that, and through her small, brave heart, I was learning it too. In that quiet apartment with the rain still falling outside, I realized something profound. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes it shows up quietly, holding a child's hand when the world feels too heavy. If you're following Lena's journey, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us tell more real-life stories that touch hearts and inspire hope. It took time, but little by little, Lena started to smile again. At first, it was just a small curve at the edge of her lips, barely noticeable. She would glance at me while we cooked, or while coloring at the kitchen table, and a tiny, hesitant smile would appear. Each one felt like a victory, a fragile sign that life was returning, however slowly, to our little apartment. One afternoon, she came running to me with a crumpled piece of paper. "Look, sir, I drew this for Mom," she exclaimed, her voice a mix of pride and hope. I looked at the drawing. It was simple, childish, and imperfect, but full of love. There were stick figures holding hands, a sun in the corner, and a big heart in the middle. I knelt down beside her, my throat tightening. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "Mom would be so proud." Her smile widened, and in that moment I realized that even in loss, children find ways to carry love forward. Lena was remembering her mother, honoring her memory, and yet learning to live in the present. I felt a sense of awe. She was so young, yet so resilient. That evening, we sat together on the couch, the room dimly lit with a single lamp. She leaned against me and asked, softly, "Do you think I'll be happy again?" I stroked her hair and took a deep breath. "Yes, sweetheart, you will. It won't happen overnight, and some days will be harder than others, but happiness, it's waiting for you, and I'll be here to help you find it." She smiled again, this time with a little more confidence, a little more belief. That small smile felt like sunlight cutting through clouds, warm, steady, and full of promise. Over the next few days, I watched her grow in subtle ways. She started talking about school again, asking questions, and even making little plans with friends. She laughed at her own mistakes while drawing or coloring. Sometimes she would pause and whisper her mother's name, and I would simply nod, letting her memory be part of our present. One morning, I found her in the kitchen trying to make pancakes by herself. Flour dusted her pajamas, and chocolate syrup was smeared on the counter. She looked up at me with pride and said, "Look, sir, I'm making breakfast for us." I smiled, kneeling down beside her. "I think your mom would love this." She beamed, and in that moment, I realized something. Grief doesn't mean the end of joy. It doesn't erase love. Instead, it teaches us to hold it differently, more carefully, more intentionally. Lena was learning that, and I was learning it too. As night fell and she drifted off to sleep, I sat quietly in the living room, reflecting. The apartment no longer felt like a place of loss alone. It felt like a space of healing, love, and hope, a place where a small, brave heart was learning to shine again. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace that told me we were moving forward together, slowly but surely. Months had passed since that unforgettable morning. The pain of Mara's loss was still there, a quiet ache that never fully left. But Lena and I had grown together, finding a rhythm in our new life. We laughed more, cried less, and slowly, the apartment that once felt heavy with grief began to feel like home again. One evening, as we were sitting on the couch reading a story, Lena looked up at me with those big, trusting eyes. "Sir, do you think Mom would be happy with how I'm doing?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her question. "Yes, sweetheart. She would be so proud. You're brave, kind, and full of love. That's what she would want for you." Her small hand slipped into mine, and I realized something profound. Even in the deepest loss, love finds a way to stay alive. It lives in memory, in gestures, in the quiet moments we share with those who remain. Mara's love hadn't disappeared. It was guiding Lena, shaping her, giving her strength. And in caring for Lena, I had learned to understand a kind of love I never knew I had within me. We had our routines now: schoolwork, small meals, bedtime stories. But it wasn't just routine. It was comfort. It was trust. And it was proof that even broken hearts can find ways to mend when held with care and patience. There were days when the sorrow came rushing back. Lena would cry softly in the middle of the night, or I would catch myself staring at Mara's empty chair, wishing things were different. But in those moments, we held each other closer, letting the love between us create warmth in the cold, empty spaces. One afternoon, Lena showed me a drawing she had made at school. It was her holding hands with me, and above us, a smiling sun. Beneath the picture, she had written, "We are strong together." I felt my throat tighten. "Yes, sweetheart," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "We are strong together, and we always will be." That evening, as I tucked her into bed, I whispered the most important lesson I had learned through this journey. Life will bring sorrow, loss, and moments you can't control. But love, kindness, and presence, those things matter more than anything. They are what heal hearts, what carry us through the darkness. She smiled sleepily, and I turned off the light, watching her drift into a calm, peaceful sleep. And for the first time in a long while, I felt hope. Not just for Lena, not just for myself, but for the quiet, enduring power of human love. Even in the darkest times, there is light. Even when life breaks us, there is a way to rebuild. And sometimes, the people who remain in our lives are enough to teach us how to keep going. If you felt touched by Lena's story, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more real-life stories that inspire, heal, and remind us all of the power of love.